Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome to the January 2025 episode of Hunt Camp Mail. I hope everyone really enjoyed Knife Month. I put a lot of hard work into those videos during a very busy month. My personal life, my professional life, my family life, and the need to produce content for this channel seemingly took up every minute of this month, but I think it was worth it. Knife Month was definitely more popular than Scope Month, Africa Month, or Reloading Month ever was. And I never imagined that so many people love those old Green River knives so much. I also enjoyed the bushcrafters that joined this channel over the last couple months. And, I welcome you guys to stick around and let me get you more interested in the hunting and fishing aspects of the outdoor life. Well, I got flooded with emails from subscribers wanting my opinion on the new 7mm Backcountry cartridge that Federal released. So before it gets too out of hand, let me render my opinion on that cartridge so I can link people to this video when they ask about it. The 7mm Backcountry is the second cartridge to come out that uses extremely high pressures to launch a projectile out of a standard size case. And this is to achieve a much higher velocity. And this, of course, has pros and cons. The main advantage to these new high pressure cartridges is that you can get standard velocities out of much shorter barrels. And as suppressors become more mainstream these days, this is a real advantage in my opinion. The cons are increased barrel wear. You need a rifle that can handle the increased pressure, safety, and of course there's some reloading complications. I've long believed that the next evolution in ammunition was going to be increased pressure loads. When I said this 6 years ago, many of you out there called me crazy. The biggest drawback to these loads is when it comes to reloading. If we look back at the 277 Fury, it's a reloading nightmare due to the hybrid case design. But the Federal 7mm Backcountry has a coated steel case, and Federal does claim that it can be reloaded, but we'll see. They really haven't given us any information on that yet, and I'll explain why later. I do remember in the past, in the late 90s, early 2000s, trying to reload steel cased Russian ammo back in the day, and that didn't go well at all. I mean, people even tried to make specific dies for those, and it was a complete nightmare, and everybody gave up. And, I also suspect that you won't be able to anneal those steel cases like we do with brass, so you have to expect case life to be really short. I'd also like to point out that if Federal is nickel coating the cases like they do with some of their existing brass cases, particularly their dangerous game ammunition, that coating will start to flake off the case into your die after a couple of cycles, which is really bad. And remember, they're claiming these cases are coated, and I'm assuming it's their nickel coating. I actually did call somebody in the industry that I trust, and according to him, RCBS is currently creating the reloading dies for the 7mm Backcountry, and they're doing this in collaboration with Federal. And from what I understand, it's not going so well. They're finding that they need to run the case through the die many times to resize it. And from what I understand, even at that, those results are very inconsistent. I think Federal ran their mouth too soon on the reloading issue. They literally claimed it could be easily reloaded like brass, and they made this claim before they actually tested it. It seems like research and development at Federal has kind of taken a backseat to marketing. Unfortunately, in the firearm industries, a lot of companies are making that mistake. One more point on this cartridge, we'll also need access to the special powder blend that they're using. So, I'd like to see Federal's solution to all of these problems before I render an official position. But with that all out of the way, let's get to January's mail. And you'll have to excuse me this month. My voice is a little bit coarse from yelling at the TV all weekend during the playoff games. And our first letter is from Gary from Las Vegas, Nevada. Gary wrote, "Happy New Year, Desert Dog. I found a really nice 7mm 08 Browning here in Vegas, and I'm thinking about buying it. I don't reload, but the local Bass Pro Shop stocks a lot of 7mm 08 ammo. Before purchasing, I ran the numbers, and it seems like it does the exact same thing as the 270 Winchester with 140 grain bullets. What are the advantages of the 7mm 08 over the old 270 Winchester?" This is actually a question I get a lot. And I want to wish you a happy new year too, Gary. And to answer your question, there's several advantages that the 7mm 08 has over the old 270 Winchester. Some folks like a short action rifle, so they prefer the 7mm 08, but personally, I don't think that matters. I shoot a short action and a long action rifle equally well, and to tell you the difference, if you're running the bolt like you should, you won't be able to tell the difference. The real advantage is that the 7mm 08 achieves similar velocities as the 270 with much less powder. Pound for pound, the 7mm 08 has less recoil at similar velocities to the 270 using the exact same grain weight bullets. And reloaders are going to save a lot of money on powder by using a lot less of it with the 7mm 08. The 7mm 08 also favors medium burn rate powders, and this means that they typically do good in shorter barrels. The powder to bore area ratio of the 270, coupled with its appetite for faster burning powders, means that the 270 needs a longer barrel to achieve its potential. And also, given similar weights and velocities, the 7mm bullet does make a slightly bigger hole, but I don't think the animals would really know that. And our next letter is from Fred in Lakewood, Colorado, which I believe is right outside Denver. Fred wrote, "I don't see why you are so against bushcraft. I understand some of the commercialization of the hobby, which I don't like, but what is wrong with people enjoying nature for fun? I'm new to your channel, so I want to understand your reasoning." Well, Fred, please watch the very last minute of that bushcraft video. I clearly stated that bushcraft can be a very fun hobby and that I'm glad people are doing it, enjoying the outdoors and getting good exercise. Just don't pretend that you possess knowledge that is going to be useful in real life situations. A YouTube bushcrafter died last month believing he was going to survive up in the mountains during the winter with his bushcraft skills, And in the last hunt camp mail, I had a forest ranger contact me and explaining that the survivalist types are the absolute worst when it comes to having to rescue people out of the woods. A bushcrafter, after I posted that video, tried to tell me that his knife was perfect for butchering elk. And, I asked him how many elk he's processed and packed out. And of course, the answer was a big 0. I had another guy tell me that I'll never survive in the mountains if I didn't baton wood to get the dry material inside of it. And, I asked him how long he's survived in the mountains unassisted, and he told me 3 days. When I told him that I did a 3-week hike in the Sierras and, I do week-long backcountry hunts in the snow where I never baton logs at all. And that guy didn't believe that somebody could survive 3 weeks in the wilderness without batoning logs or making feather sticks. The real problem with bushcraft isn't that it's bad. It's that many of the people doing it have a false sense of reality and They spew what they believe is expert advice about things that they've never done. I'd rather get advice from a hiker who spent 5 or 6 months doing the PCT or the Appalachian Trail. I'd rather get advice from a hunter or a trapper who spends weeks in the backcountry during the winter, or a homesteader trying to eke out an existence to live off grid. Those people aren't batoning logs or chopping trees with a knife, and they probably don't know what a feather stick even is. you know, they're also going to tell you that if you try to live in the backcountry, relying on a knife and whittling wood, you're going to end up dying. I do think bushcraft is a great hobby and it gets people outside, but that's about it. I hate to say this, but bushcrafters have become to the outdoor community what mall ninjas are to the firearm community. And our next letter is from Tyler in Nebraska. Tyler wrote, "Greetings, Desert Dog. I lease rights to guide hunts on a good property here in Nebraska. I decided to donate a deer hunt for a charity raffle last year. This is normally a $6,000 hunt on a premier property for a big free-range buck. The guy that won the hunt got really lucky. His buddy bought him one $10 raffle ticket, and that ticket won. So the guy shows up with an old Remington 700 and tells me that he doesn't have ammo because he can't afford it. So that afternoon, I run into town for him and buy him 2 boxes of ammo for his gun. He goes to sight it in, and the bullets aren't even hitting the target. After wasting 15 rounds, I find out that his Bushnell scope is broken. I then loan him my personal 30-06 Winchester with a Swarovski scope, and he complains about how much he hates Winchester. Then he complains about the food constantly. Then he complains that it's too cold and I should provide free insulated rubber boots to clients. He ended up missing 2 really nice bucks and blamed it on my shitty Winchester. He then went online to 4 different hunting forums to badmouth me. Do other guides deal with this crap?" Oh boy, that's a bad experience. And I just have to tell you, Tyler, most guides and outfitters stop donating hunts because the quality of client that those free hunts attract is usually really bad. Also, many outfitters have always kind of hoped that the guy hunting for free brings a friend or family member with them, so they have a paying client with them. But unfortunately, these days, that rarely happens anymore. We've created a society of givers and takers. Half of us are givers and half of us are takers. Givers work really hard for what they have, so they really appreciate anything that they get, and they really never expect anything from others. Takers, on the other hand, want everything handed to them, so they learn to expect that from everyone in their lives. Even when something is given to them for free, it'll never be good enough and they'll shit all over it. This is why most takers are kind of losers and live off of other people's money. But on the other hand, if you buy a giver, a really hardworking guy, a steak dinner, he'll eat it, thank you multiple times for paying for dinner, and insists that he pays the next time. And that's how givers deal with something that's given to them for free. But if you buy a taker a steak dinner, he'll complain that it's the worst steak he's ever had. Then he'll embarrass you by being extremely rude to the waitress when his Bud Light stays empty for 2 minutes. Takers will shit on everything given to them for free. And Tyler, your client was a taker. Most Africa outfitters stopped donating free hunts to smaller venues because the clientele was so bad, and all of the unreasonable complaints they were getting was kind of tarnishing their reputation. So they just stopped giving away free hunts. Hunts usually go for high prices at auctions like SCI or the Dallas Safari Club. But at the smaller raffles, you'll likely get a guy who was given a $10 raffle ticket and expects first class accommodations and record book trophies. You know, I know this might sound messed up, but if I owned a guide business, I would never donate free hunts if they were going to be raffled off. Our next letter is from Josh in Japan. Josh wrote, "You used Amarula for your toast this year and remarked that you liked it. So out of curiosity, I checked to see if I can get it in Japan and ordered a bottle after finding it on Amazon Japan. It arrived today and it's good stuff. Thanks for introducing it." Well, you're welcome, Josh. I was introduced to Amarula in South Africa many years ago and was told that if I didn't add this to my morning coffee, I wasn't a real man. Then, of course, if you didn't drink it on ice in the evening, you also weren't worthy of an Afrikaner's respect. It actually became my favorite liqueur, and although I don't drink it before the hunting day starts anymore, I certainly do drink it after. I'm going to piss off a lot of my Irish viewers by saying this, but I think this is better than Bailey's. And you have to love the story behind Amarula. Elephants often eat the fruit of the marula tree, which falls to the ground and kind of sits there and ferments. And it was said that the elephants would eat this fruit and get drunk. And being that elephants are rowdy drunks, they'd harass the locals in a fit of rage. Amarula is made from the fruit of the marula tree, and that's why there's a pissed off bull elephant on the bottle. And knowing this, who wouldn't want to drink Amarula? And our next letter is from Joe from Washington, and I assume Joe's from Washington State, not DC. Joe wrote, "As a Native American, I want to thank you for calling out bushcraft experts. My people have been starting fires in wet weather without batoning wood for thousands of years. Even the white settlers did not baton wood with a knife. What really makes me angry is the white bushcraft people who dress up like Native Americans and pretend to be one. When I watch a person bushcraft on TV wearing feathers and beads, it makes me sick. Anyway, good show, and you have a good hunting channel." Well, I appreciate the letter, Joe, and your perspective as a Native American. You know, I love hearing different perspectives on issues. White Americans, particularly the ones we'd call leftists, suffer from numerous mental disorders, which includes an identity crisis. Leftists hate everything because they really hate themselves. And to cope with this, they pretend to be someone else. I see suburban white people who think they're black, white martial artists who think they're Japanese, and men that think they're women. Unfortunately, they often want to play Native American too. It's a sad reality of the white American leftists, unfortunately. But you are 100% correct on batoning wood with a knife. Before the 1980s, when people started batoning wood with a knife on a large scale, you know, before 1980, how did people survive? And this is something that bushcrafters should endeavor to learn. And our next letter is from Peter in Germany. Peter wrote, "I attentively watched your MORA knife video and loved it. I read the comments and was surprised at most of the Swedish viewers claiming that Swedes don't like MORA knives and they are considered to be garbage in Sweden. Do you think this is actually true?" Well, all the comments surprised me as well. And I actually received an email from a Swede stating how the locals think that the plastic handled MORA knives are garbage. And they're basically like trash knives there that are viewed as being disposable. And He was really surprised to see how much Americans like them. But like you, Peter, I honestly thought that most Swedes were proud of the MORA knife, but apparently I was wrong. I never considered a MORA knife as anything but a really good beater knife. For under $25, I don't think you could beat them for a cheap knife. Costs were cut to make a MORA knife as cheap as it is, so embrace that. Americans are the most susceptible creatures to hype that you will ever find. And once Morse Kahansky put a MORA knife around his neck, the modern gospel of bushcraft was written, and the entire herd of bushcrafters was just going to worship whatever he owned. And that's kind of how it started. Then when Ray Mears showed us his woodlore knife in, what was it, the 1990s, everyone was frantically trying to buy an overpriced Scandi grind knife for themselves. And bushcraft, unfortunately, is largely a hype-driven hobby. And our next letter is from Brian in Idaho. Brian wrote, I loved your story about finding those old Green River knives in the ruins of an old house in Idaho when you were a boy. Even though you don't live in Idaho, your connection with the state is greater than most people who live here. I have a similar story. My uncle owns some land that has stone ruins of an old homestead on his property. Exploring it as a kid 30 years ago, I found an old Green River Skinner knife. I still have it, and it made me interested in the knives my entire life. When I turned 18, I bought a couple of new Green River knives at the hardware store for hunting, and I still use them today. Now, because of your video, I ordered some blanks, and I'm going to make my own custom handles like you did. That video made me very happy. Well, I'm glad it made you happy, and to tell you the truth, I never really feel a sense of accomplishment after I produce most videos, but that Green River knife video really did it for me. The fact that watching it made you and other viewers happy actually means a lot to me. Making everyone happy is a gift that I'm just not always in a position to give. I've been a collector and researcher of Green River knives for decades now, and I did have a couple of viewers ask me to do a video on my old Green River knives, but I just never really thought there was a lot of interest from others. But I really put my heart into that video, and I only expected maybe a few thousand views, but when it shot up to over 70,000 views in 1 week, I was in absolute shock. That might be small beans for most channels, but that's unheard of for my channel. And that video might prove to be one of my most popular videos ever produced. And people are actually watching the whole thing, just not just the first 5 minutes like most videos. So I want to thank everybody for making that video a huge success. And our next letter is from Steve from Provo, Utah. Steve wrote, your video on Africa PH rifle recommendations was exactly what I needed. American hunters have many opinions on Africa rifles, but it was eye-opening to hear it from actual professional hunters. The PHs actually contradict what many Americans tell you. I was shocked at the PHs who specialize in dangerous game recommending the 416 so much. For plains game, they seem to prefer the 30-06 and 300 Magnum. I guess I should have listened to Desert Dog all along. What I found really fascinating was that Craig Boddington's Dangerous Game PH didn't seem to like it when clients bring a double rifle, stating that in the heat of the moment, they often never find the second trigger, and doubles aren't very versatile for a client. I bought a 470 Nitro Express double last year and plan to use it on a buffalo hunt in Mozambique for 2026. Like Craig Boddington's PH stated, when I practice, I often pull the front trigger twice on accident, which could be trouble in a real-life situation. How do you remedy this? Maybe I should sell the double rifle and get a 416 Rigby or Rem Mag instead. Well, first, let's talk about training to use a double rifle. Don't waste thousands of dollars on 470 Nitro Express ammunition trying to get that muscle memory. What you should really do is buy yourself a side-by-side shotgun with double triggers on it and a couple flats of cheap shotgun shells and, go shoot clays with it. In particular, shoot double clays because that forces you to use both triggers relatively fast like you would in a stressful situation. This is literally the quickest and cheapest way to get the required muscle memory to use a double rifle with double triggers on it. But let's talk about Mozambique for a moment here. You might want to avoid it right now, or at least do some more research on current events happening there right now. I know the State Department is warning people about Mozambique for crime, terrorism, kidnapping, and political unrest right now. So just do your research before you put money down on that hunt right now. Also, speaking of Mozambique, let's talk about hunting in the country for a moment. If you're going to be hunting coastal Mozambique or the Delta area, like most people do, then you'll likely be taking pretty long shots on herd bulls, and a scoped rifle would be better for that. So just make sure you do your research before you pay for this trip. And our next letter is from Michael in Laguna Niguel, California. Michael wrote, I went fly fishing on the Owens River last week and caught and released a very nice trout. It was freezing, but sunny and beautiful with the Sierra Nevada mountains as a backdrop. So my wife took a picture of that nice fish with beautiful scenery behind me, and I posted it on a fly fishing group on Facebook. Everybody shamed me for fishing in the river during the winter and basically called me an unethical fish murderer. Are the liberals taking over fly fishing? I think I answered this a couple of times in past Hunt Cat mails, but yeah, they kind of have been for a while now. Fly fishing has traditionally been politically neutral, and that's the way it should be. But when you get enough leftists involved with anything, the whining and superiority complex eventually takes over. I mean, look at how the fly shop manager in Montana treated Tucker Carlson. I mean, Tucker Carlson was just going into his fly shop to buy a few flies and throw some business their way. And basically, that manager called him a Nazi and a racist and told him to leave the fly shop. And, that's a leftist for you. And to these people, fishing when it's cold is bad. Fishing when it's hot is bad. Touching a fish is bad. Fishing during any spawning activity is bad. Fishing with streamers is bad. Nymphing is bad. Wading is bad. And using a net is bad, but you should always use a net. Then they'll tell you to never play fish long. Then they'll go out and use a 3-weight fly rod for big trout. These people have so many self-imposed limitations and are so easily offended by everything that they might as well just stop fishing altogether. I personally tell them to fuck off when they try to push their ideology on me, and they usually just move on to something else to be mad about. And our next letter is from Austin. Austin wrote, your MORA knife video made me cringe every time you would pronounce the company name. You kept saying Morakniv, but it is actually pronounced Morakniv with the K silent. You should have done more research. Austin, congratulations. You've earned the first bullshit button of 2025. Bullshit! 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 You need to stop listening to people on internet forums and stop listening to Blade HQ salespeople. It's pronounced Morakniv. And here's the CEO of Morakniv pronouncing the company name for you.
Hello. I'm Johan Bertus. I'm CEO at Morakniv.
Morakniv.
And welcome to Morakniv.
Yeah, thank you.
As you could see, Austin, You were too lazy to do 5 minutes of research and find the truth for yourself before stating false information as fact. This is one of my biggest pet peeves with the modern outdoor community. You're intellectually lazy. People no longer want to learn things. People want to be told things. And more often than not, what they're told has been repeated and passed down through other intellectually lazy people. And it all gets spewed forth from your mouth eventually as truth. And I really hope you learned your lesson on this, Austin. And our next letter is from Peyton in the UK. Peyton wrote, I love the OKAPI knife video. My family lived in Jamaica for 2 years when I was younger, and ratchets were everywhere. Even little kids carried them and flipped them open for fun. I tried to post this in the comments, but your YouTube channel is experiencing issues. You might want to look into this issue. It's not a YouTube glitch, Peyton. I personally paused all the comments for that video because there was a lot of drama going on in the comment section. There was, let's just say, much use of the N-word, and several people of South African origin posted some really atrocious things about racial cleansing. It was crazy and started happening within the first half hour that I uploaded that video and made it live. I don't need to get reported on YouTube and lose another channel, and I definitely don't want my personal brand's reputation associated with what those individuals post. So for the better good, I paused the comments on that video. It's crazy how my bushcraft video got over 1,000 comments in a few days, and none of them were racist. But it only took a half hour for the OKAPI video to basically attract every racist on YouTube. And I really think the algorithm failed me on that one. And our next letter is from Mark in Elk Grove, California. Mark wrote, You blew my mind, Desert Dog. I've been following you for 4 years, and I'm an avid hunter and survival skills instructor. The bushcraft and knife videos were a great change up from your usual content, and you did it in a masterful way. I teach my students to bring the right tools and always venture into the wild as prepared as possible. I also teach people emergency survival skills when they only have a knife. I teach them to never baton wood or risk damaging their only tool. As you probably know, in wet conditions, dry wood and tinder is usually easy to find if you know the right trees and plants. The bushcraft crowd thinks they need to baton wood to make a fire. Your video was a necessary wake-up call. Mark, humans have been making fire in wet conditions for over 1 million years. And we didn't start batoning logs with a knife until about 1980. If you want to learn primitive skills, learn what those primitive people did. As you know, Mark, some tree species are water resistant and are easy to light when kindling is going. Pine and spruce in particular, burn really good when your fire's hot, even when it's wet. Resin content is also a big factor, and native cultures always looked for fat wood. The easiest way to get dry or dead wood in the rain is to collect hang-ups, out of the trees, or remove dead branches that are still attached to the tree at the bottom of the canopy. Even standing dead trees can provide can be a good dry wood source. Tinder can also be found everywhere, As you know, spruce bark is probably the best, and the natives used to actually collect tinder and store it on them as they walked around. And even if it was wet, it would dry off on them while they were walking around and be ready to use when they needed it. But what really cracks me up is that 99% of batoning in the bushcraft world is done needlessly in dry conditions. When there's plenty of fuel sitting all over the ground. That would take absolutely no effort to use that fuel. So I think that aspect of bushcraft really has nothing to do with surviving at all. And our last question is from Samuel in Norman, Oklahoma. Samuel wrote, several years ago, you answered a letter about Martha Williams being appointed as the Director of Fish and Wildlife. You had a mixed opinion on her and had a wait-and-see attitude. Now that Trump is probably going to throw her out, how would you critique her tenure as Director of Fish and Wildlife? Well, you watch this channel for honest and unbiased opinions, and I'm going to give you one on her. I think that Martha Williams' legacy will be mostly positive, but with some negatives. Ultimately, I think she's done what most directors have always done. They attempt to protect our right to hunt and fish, but in the end, they're just politicians beholden to political agendas. I will say that for being chosen as director by such a radically left regime, she was surprisingly moderate in most matters. She opened up over 200,000 acres of federal land to hunting, including dozens of wildlife refuges where hunting was previously not allowed. Her biggest failure, though, in which she repeatedly violated her own organization's policy and federal law, was her refusal to delist the grizzly bear, even though the population is way above the threshold for delisting it in the lower 48 states. The grizzly should have been delisted in the lower 48 over 10 years ago. So it's kind of a mixed bag with Martha Williams. Well, that's it for this month's mail. Here's some memes for the month of January. I did attend the Safari Club International Convention in Nashville this year, and I did purchase an Africa hunt for 2025. I'll be hunting buffalo in Nyakasaga this summer, which is a very remote, unfenced wild area with no human inhabitants in it. We'll be staying in a tent a few yards from the banks of the Zambezi River, and supposedly hippos, lions, hyenas, and elephants just kind of roam through camp, especially at night. So it sounds like a really exhilarating experience. In my opinion, this was the best SCI convention ever. I got to talk to Jim Shockey, and Don Trump Jr. was just roaming all over the place, taking pictures with people and booking hunts. I personally saw him book a hunt to Mongolia. And to all the vendors out there that noticed me and showered me with free swag, thank you. That all of that kind of attention embarrassed me. I was also embarrassed kind of by all the attendees of the show that noticed me and came up and said hi and gave me a handshake. I'm totally approachable. If you see me out in the wild, don't hesitate to say hello to me or have a conversation with me. But I just can't believe I'm getting that kind of attention. It's weird to me. While I was there, I talked to the president of Swift Bullets, and he let me know that the material shortages that they were experiencing appear to be over, and they're working really hard right now to keep up with demand for big bore bullets. They're trying to keep those in stock for those of us who load safari cartridges. Also, the Montana Rifle Company is going to release a line of dangerous game rifles later this year. And they're going to be chambered, and get this, 375 H&H, 416 Rem Mag, and 458 lot. They're all going to have straight comb stocks, barrel bands on them, and of course, controlled round feed. With CZ discontinuing the 550, Winchester just seemingly unwilling to keep up with demand for the Safari Express rifle, which, right now I understand there's like a year wait on one of those. And Ruger stupidly only chambering their dangerous game rifles in proprietary cartridges. It's really intelligent of the Montana Rifle Company to kind of jump in and fill that void while it's available right now. So I wish them a lot of luck doing it. And thanks for having another production 416 and probably the only American production rifle chambered in 458 lot. I really appreciate that. While I was at the show, Trijicon also noticed me and pulled me aside and thanked me for promoting their scopes. They confirmed that they'll never sacrifice durability in pursuit of a lightweight scope. They also confirmed that they do extensive drop testing on their scopes. And one of those tests that they do is they actually mount the scope on a full weight rifle and drop it from 6.5 feet onto the ground. So that's the type of durability I want out of a scope. And thank you, Trijicon, for providing that to us. I was also happy to see many knife vendors there this year too, including the makers of my favorite EDC knife, Hogue. I'll post a video of the convention next week, and we just had a really good time there, and Nashville is a fantastic city to have a convention like that. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed Knife Month, and I want to thank everyone for making it such a huge success. You can contact me with any questions or comments at desertdogoutdoors@gmail.com. Thank you for watching, and as always, good hunting.